It was a bright, sunny day when I set off, excited and filled with confidence. I'd watched countless survival videos, read a stack of articles, and I really thought I knew what I was doing. I mean, how hard could it be to survive for 24 hours with just the essentials? But as I sat in the car, staring at the dense forest ahead, I couldn't shake this feeling that I might have bitten off more than I could chew. I had no idea just how quickly things could go wrong and how deeply this experience would change me. I had prepared for this moment for weeks. The plan was simple: survive for 24 hours in a remote forest with nothing but a small backpack. No emergency beacon, no map. I wanted to test myself to see if I truly had what it took. I packed the basics: a large hunting knife, a small first aid kit, a flashlight, a fire starter, a whistle, some dried food, and a couple bottles of water. My phone was off, left behind in my car. This was about raw survival, just me against the wilderness. When I stepped out of the car, the first thing that hit me was the silence. No cars, no chatter, no distractions, just the quiet rustle of leaves in the wind. It was peaceful at first, but that silence quickly felt like a heavy, almost crushing presence. I set off into the woods, knowing my first challenge was to find a good spot to set up camp. I remembered a small creek from the map and figured that would be a good place to start. It took me about 30 minutes of walking through thick brush, dodging thorns and trying to keep my bearings, but eventually I found it. By the time I found a suitable spot near the creek, I was already sweating and sore. Carrying that pack through the rough terrain was way harder than I'd imagined. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. The first task was building a shelter. I'd seen so many videos on how to make a basic lean-to with branches and leaves. My first few attempts were a total disaster. Branches kept snapping, and I couldn't find the right kind of leaves for insulation. But after a few hours of trial and error, I finally managed to build something that looked like a shelter. It wasn't pretty, but it would have to work. Next up, a fire pit. Using my flint and steel, I struggled to get a spark. The damp wood wasn't helping, and I could feel my frustration building. It took way longer than I expected, but eventually I saw a small flame flicker to life. It was a tiny victory, but it was enough to boost my morale. As I sat beside the fire, eating my small meal of dried food, I looked around and realized something important. It wasn't the wilderness that was the hardest part. It was the loneliness. The silence of being completely alone, with no one to talk to, no distractions. That was something I just wasn't prepared for. Nightfall brought a sense of unease that I wasn't ready for. The temperature dropped fast, and my once pleasant fire became essential for warmth. My shelter, while functional, wasn't enough to keep the chill out. I could feel my body shivering as I sat in the corner of the lean-to, wrapped in a thin sleeping bag. But the worst part wasn't the cold, it was the sounds of the night. Every crack of a branch, every rustle in the bushes, sent my heart racing. I knew it was probably just small animals, but in the dark my mind played tricks on me. The quiet of the woods was replaced by the occasional hoot of an owl, the distant howl of a coyote, and sounds of creatures scurrying in the underbrush. Each noise felt amplified. I found myself just staring into the darkness, too afraid to sleep, but too exhausted to stay awake. Around midnight, my fears turned into reality when I heard something large move nearby. It was too close for comfort. My heart was pounding in my chest as I grabbed my knife, thinking it might be a predator. But after what felt like an eternity, the noise stopped and nothing appeared. I lay awake for hours after that, listening for any other sign of danger. The next morning, I woke up feeling worse than I had the night before. My legs were sore from walking, my back ached from sleeping on the hard ground, and I was mentally exhausted. I hadn't slept properly, and it was clear this wasn't going to be as easy as I had imagined. I had to find food. The creek offered some hope, but fishing without proper equipment was going to be a challenge. I tried for hours to catch anything, but after several failed attempts, I realized I wasn't going to survive by just hoping for fish. So I turned to my backup plan: foraging. I spent the next several hours walking through the woods looking for anything edible. I found some berries, which I carefully washed in the creek, and a few edible plants I recognized. It wasn't much, but it was enough to stave off the hunger for a little while. By the time evening rolled around again, I was physically and mentally drained. My body was sore, my food was almost gone, and I had failed to accomplish most of what I'd hoped to. My fire was out, my shelter was barely holding up, and the cold was starting to feel unbearable. That night, I sat alone by the embers of my fire, just staring into the darkness. I realized I wasn't cut out for this. I wasn't the survivalist I thought I was. This wasn't about knowledge or skill. It was about mental strength, and mine was faltering. I sat there thinking about home, about comfort, the warmth of my bed. It was so tempting to just give up, to walk out of the woods and go back to my life. But then I remembered why I started this challenge in the first place, to prove something to myself. I couldn't quit. The final hours were a blur of exhaustion, hunger, and frustration. But when that 24-hour mark finally came, I stood up, shaky but proud. I had made it. I had survived. It wasn't the perfect adventure I had pictured. It wasn't glamorous, and it sure wasn't easy, but it was mine. It taught me lessons about resilience, about pushing through discomfort, and about the strength of the human spirit. The wilderness had tested me, and I had made it through. As I made my way back to civilization, I realized that the real victory wasn't surviving the 24 hours, it was surviving the doubt and fear that came with it. And that was something I could take with me forever. True survival isn't just about physical strength, it's about mental toughness. And no matter how tough it gets, the real victory lies in not giving up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this journey as much as I did. If you found this story inspiring or thrilling, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another adventure. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and tell me what challenges you've faced or what survival tips you would share. Stay strong, stay curious, and keep pushing your limits. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and keep exploring.